The Second World War has come to an end. In the summer of 1945, the Allied powers meet in Potsdam to discuss what is to become of Germany. The German Labour Front, which used to own Volkswagenwerk GmbH, no longer exists. The company has become an asset without an owner. The British military government takes over responsibility on the 5th of June and appropriates the factory, and it sends a young major there to take charge. His name is Ivan Hirst.
I first arrived at Stadt, already called Wolfsburg. The Americans had been there before us and had changed the name. I was a very young man. I was 28 years old. Well, initially, my brief was very simply just to go to Wolfsburg and find the factory and sit on it. I didn't even say it was a Volkswagen factory.
Germany is largely in ruins. Like the other Allied powers, Britain faces the challenge of providing food, housing, heating fuels and clothing to the population of its occupied zone. The British must also decide what to do with the remaining industrial facilities. They take over the administration of the confiscated Volkswagenwerk GmbH as trustees.
There was already a British army presence at Wolfsburg, in the factory. They had the Volkswagen company repairing trucks and some buses which were coming back from the German army and were being overhauled and made ready for issue to the German transport organizations.
The equipment for these workshops is provided by the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, known as REME, a branch of the British Army in charge of maintaining army equipment, which already begins work in Volkswagen's workshops in early June 1945.
The object of that exercise was to get road transport moving in readiness for the coming winter, as everything in Germany was chaotic. The railways were not working properly, the roads were not in good condition, many bridges were out. So the planners had given priority to this operation to get some transport moving, to get food moving and people moving. So the army presence meant there was already contact with the German management of Volkswagen. My first job was to be introduced to the then German factory manager, one Rudolf Bröhrmann, and we had a quick look around the factory. The factory was in a very poor state. About 2/3 of the roof was down. There were big holes in the floor. The production had still been running up to the end of the war. The company had been working on for the aircraft industry, and alongside that they had been making the Kübelwagen, the Volkswagen Jeep. The production of the Kübelwagen, the Jeep type Volkswagen, had continued to the end of the war, not in large volume.
During the war, a considerable number of machines and large amounts of inventory had been moved from the factory to the surrounding region, and these were now brought back little by little. For Ivan Hirst and REME, the question was, could the factory be used more extensively?
Well, happily for Volkswagen, one Colonel Michael McEvoy, at Rhine Army, the British Army headquarters, who was in charge of operations like the one going on at Volkswagen, he went up to Berlin to the motor show at the beginning of 1939, where the Beetle, the Käfer, was first shown to the world. There were prototypes. And he had a ride in one of these, and he remembered the vehicle well. And because one of his detachments was already at Wolfsburg, he went to have a look at the factory, and he thought there was a possibility. When he realized that Volkswagen was working for the British already and was in the British zone, it was he who had the bright idea that if we could get the Volkswagen into production It would provide the transportation which the British urgently needed for administering Germany, the British zone. The British Army had very few light vehicles. Really, the only vehicles we had were 1,500 weight or 1-ton trucks. A few light vehicles, but they'd come all the way up from Normandy and they were about worn out. And defence spending had been cut, so there was no hope of getting any help from Britain. If these cars could be made in Germany, they would be charged to occupation costs. That is, they would be paid for by Germany. There had been a small production of the saloon Käfer, Beetle, at Wolfsburg during the war. Some hundreds had been built, not many. And one of these was at the factory. Don't know who it belonged to or why it was there, but it was there. I had it painted green, like an army vehicle, and sent it to Rhine Army headquarters. And it came back with an order for 20,000 cars, which was a green light for the factory to start. I think the feeling was not never make it, but what a hell of a job in front of us.